Once upon a time, there was a franchise that ruled next to Grand Theft Auto in terms of open-world crime games. One that would go from relatively goofy to just downright absurd, making chaotic but fun times. I'm of course talking about the Saints Row series. Since its debut in 2006, we got 6 titles in the series, not including technical DLC and a game called Agents of Mayhem that I won't be covering here as I never played it, and probably never will. But let me know in the comments below if it's worth giving it a shot. Maybe I'll give it a try, but either way, this series has had some highs and definitely some lows, and as a fan of the series, I wanted to take a look back and see why Saints Row died. So if you like the video and want to see more of what I've done and what's to come, I do a lot of ranking videos and I've been trying to do more retrospective stuff and fun creative stuff like this. So if you like that, hit the like button, consider subscribing as I'd greatly appreciate it and would love to have you here. Anyways, let's go over the series briefly and look at the good and the bad that this franchise has to offer, and try to answer the question of what happened to Saints Row. So in 2006, a company called Volition, the guys behind classic games like Red Faction and a personal favorite of mine, The Punisher, joined forces with a company called THQ, who was behind some decent titles like SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom, banger of a game, and other stuff like WWE Here Comes the Pain, to make a game to compete with top-tier game series Grand Theft Auto. Not making a clone as much as making their own spin on an open world crime game with their personal, spin on it. And what we got was a game initially called Bling Bling. Thank God they changed that title. And they respectfully called it Saints Row. In Saints Row, we played as a silent protagonist who joins small-time street gang, the 3rd Street Saints, and us, the player, helps them take over the city of Stillwater. Piece by piece. The game is crazy but fun, silly but serious at the same time, and it honestly worked perfectly. The missions were solid and the gameplay, while arcadey, was a good time. That's not even mentioning the mini games you have to play to earn respect to do said missions, where there were wild and super fun stuff to do, like insurance fraud, where you jump out into traffic to earn money, or drug trafficking, where you whip around with a drug dealer protecting him on his route. Such a good time, all combined to make this banger of a game that saw a decent success, selling close to 1 million units if the internet is telling the truth. And with that, Volition had a hit, and it was only going to get better. Because in 2008, they would take what they learned on Saints Row 1 and do it even better with Saints Row 2, arguably the best game in the franchise according to most of the fan base, including myself. This game was wild, and I loved it. Taking place 2 years, I believe, after the original, where we, the player, now the boss, wakes up from a coma in a prison for like 2 seconds, until we break out and get back to the streets of Stillwater, resurrecting the 3rd Street Saints after what happened at the end of the first game, taking on another 3 gangs to claim ownership over the city of Stillwater. The story was better and funnier, the gangs were fire, way better than the first set of gangs that we had in 1, and the gameplay was improved in most areas, unless you tried playing on PC. The soundtrack was bumpin', the activities were better, and it also brought back a lot of classics like insurance fraud and drug trafficking, and adding stuff like Fight Club, which we don't talk about, and other fun stuff like Demo Derby, which I always loved, and stuff even like crowd control. They just had a lot of good mini games. They did everything right with Saints Row 2. There was so much passion for this series at the time, and you really could see it. This game was and still is awesome, and it showed even in 2008, with the sales doubled what they made on the first game. So let's keep going down the line and see if they can keep the hits coming. With Saints Row the 3rd in 2011, the series finally stepped out of the shadow of GTA, leaning heavily on the series' more goofy aspects and not taking itself as seriously as they once did, which is what the series became known for better or for worse. Saints Row 3 was a big open world to just cause chaos and have fun in, which I'm all for. It wasn't at this point in the series that lost me, but it was getting there. But don't worry, just give it a little bit of time. So as for the story this time around, the Saints became celebrities, funny enough, doing as they pleased and getting praised for it until we robbed the wrong people, getting kidnapped and taken to the city of Steelport, where we end up taking revenge on another group of gangs taking over the city in the process. It changed the formula, making it somewhat fresh. The gameplay was improved, as well as graphics looking pretty great, and the story was decent. It did the job. Although there was a little bit of a big thing they did in the beginning of the game that I won't say because it's a spoiler, but they definitely fucked up in the beginning of the game. But either way, they were going big with crazy stuff like the famous penetrator weapon that I don't think I can show here, but if you know, you know. And it just gave us goofy-ass characters like Zemos and Killbane and people like that. It was a really weird game, but this was a good thing for the series at the time. The goofiness of the game, it put itself out there, pushing hours worth of fun. Like I said, it took it out of the shadow of the GTA clone thing becoming an actual competitor. But sadly, this is where the series would actually start to fall from grace, especially with the next title. At the time, Volition was cooking up a DLC expansion for Saints Row 3 called Enter the Dominatrix, when THQ, the publishers of the series, went bankrupt. Which, of course, was devastating, as funding for this expansion as well as any future titles had to be put on hold. And could have easily been the moment Saints Row died, until a company called Deep Silver, the company that published games like Dead Island and the underrated banger Prison Break, came to save the day, winning a bid to buy out the Saints Row IP and Volition, which was amazing news for Volition, as it basically saved the series. Now they had the funding to continue making Saints Row, so Volition decided that expansion for Saints Row 3 could be a full-length title. Why? I don't know, but they did, and Deep Silver were down for it, as they've published some very outlandish titles in the past. So in 2013, we got Saints Row 4. This title was so out there, you couldn't even compare it to the original. Being kind of a spoof on classic movies like The Matrix, the Saints fight for humanity, attempting to save the human race from aliens. There's superpowers and weird fever dream moments. While there is a lot of fun to be had in this game, and it looked relatively decent and played decent, it just wasn't Saints Row. And the vast majority of fans, at least OG fans, agreed that this was way too far from the game series that we had come to know. And while this game has its fans, it brought a divide in the community between fans that wanted the craziness and the fans that wanted the series to just tone it down a little and return to its roots. And while the franchise has never taken itself super seriously, it still respected the material and its characters, while this game kind of just shits on that. The game is hilarious. It was just a little too much. It definitely would have served better as more of just a DLC for Saints Row 3. So for some reason, probably because of the success of Saints Row 4, I actually don't know the numbers here, I don't have it written down or anything, Volition took another concept meant to be a DLC for the series and turned it into a full game. And in 2015, we got Saints Row Gat Out of Hell, another journey into the absurd where the story follows series' favorite character, Johnny Gat, as he goes on a mission to rescue the boss, the character we've been playing as the whole time, from the devil. It is beyond crazy, taking a game about taking over a city from rival gangs with crazy funny moments to a funhouse of the most over-the-top shit Volition could think of. And it was at this point that most of the OG fans of the series checked out, including myself for the most part. There is fun to be had with this game. It's wild, but fun, and it plays decently, but it just completely strays way too far away from what made the series Saints Row. You know, it wasn't the same. So a lot of Saints Row fans that loved the classic style hated this game. And even fans of the craziness of 4 thought that this should have just been a DLC. This game failed, leaving fans worried that Deep Silver was just trying to milk the series, and they did, but we'll get there. The series for a while died here, with the exception of the disaster that was Agents of Mayhem, which again I never played but never heard good things about. It seemed like we would never see Saints Row again. But 4 years later, at Gamescom, in 2021, Deep Silver announced the next game in the franchise. A fucking reboot, which could have been a good thing. There was an ending that you get in Gat Out of Hell, where you get to choose multiple endings, where you reboot the whole universe and start it all over because the Earth is destroyed and shit like that. at least it was destroyed in Saints Row 4. They really dug themselves into a hole with that one. So it kind of goes off of that concept. Which, again, it all could have been a good thing. Now, obviously, with how crazy Saints Row got, they wrote themselves into a corner. So it made sense that they wanted to reboot the series entirely. So would they pull something out their ass and bring this dying franchise back to life? Well, no. But they definitely pulled something out their ass, and that something was Saints Row 2022. They wanted a fresh start, and it made sense. They wanted old fans and new fans to come back together and kickstart the franchise again, but damn, did they really miss the mark. Giving us not the old 3rd Street Saints we knew and loved, but a group of small-ass college kids in a new city that had potential, at least the city did, but never stood out. With mechanics and gameplay that was super outdated, with a story that was just straight garbage. This time around, we play as the boss, a young-ass dude robbing stores with his weak-ass friends to pay student loans, something like that at least, that just decide that they should start a gang and take over the city. The setup was fucking trash, and the dialogue for the entire game was even worse.
Goddamn fucking shitballs on this side order, a mother-loving shit-smothered, piss-covered ass crack!
I will never understand where Volition or Deep Silver thought that this was it, because, spoiler alert, it was not. Not to mention how buggy this game was, with game-breaking glitches. The game simply didn't always want to play. Even the game wanted to itself. It's wild. The side missions were bland, and the story missions were worse. The whole structure of the game was shit, and even outdated, and, as to be expected, the game failed. And shortly after the game release, Volition was shut down. After all these years, they burnt all their bridges with fans, and their publishers decided that they were no longer useful. It's a shame, and with the failure of Saints Row 2022, the series is just kind of put on hold. So will it ever come back? Probably not. And even if it does, it'll never be what it once was. It sucks, because for years I was a fan of the series, and even after the bullshit that was Saints Row 4 and even Gat Out of Hell, I still felt that they could have brought this series back in a lot of great ways, and they fumbled the ball completely. But why? Why did this series take such a nosedive? Well, I think it all starts with the developers wanting to make the series as far from a GTA clone as possible. Forging their own identity, which they did well with Saints Row 3 and is understandable, but I always thought Saints Row really always had its own identity from the very beginning. I mean, GTA as a whole doesn't own the open world crime game market. They may be the kings of it, but that doesn't mean no one else can do it. I always thought that people comparing this to GTA was honestly just stupid, and Volition took it too far until they were pulled back down. After taking this series to a place it couldn't stay, and company greed shoved Saints Row 2022 out, thinking that the kids will love this one, and failed in the process. It all failed. Trying to fix what was already perfect to begin with, it basically offed itself twice. I've always loved this franchise, at least the first 3 games, and somewhat of the 4th game. I have a soft spot for it in a way. I mean, mainly just for the memories with all the games. But respectfully, unless we get some developers that understand the assignment and have ambition to make something great, I don't really want it. And I'm not sure we'll ever get it. And it's a shame, but we have what we have, and most of it is good, or at least decent. F in the comments below for Saints Row. We miss you. And it's really a shame. Will this series ever come back? Honestly, I don't know. I mean, the rights are still there, and they could easily make another game, but Saints Row 2022 did so bad and got so much hate that I just don't think they're ever going to want to try it again, even though they could easily just bring at least our beloved characters back and our beloved city back of Stillwater, and they would probably get a lot of hype behind it, but I don't know. I'm not a game developer or a person with a lot of money, so what the fuck do I know? But either ways, what do you think killed the series? Greed or the need to be different? What's your favorite game in the series? Let me know in the comments below. Let's talk Saints Row. But anyways, if you made it this far in the video, thank you. You're awesome. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you saw, be sure to share, like, and subscribe to see more of what I've done and what's to come. Support the channel. I'd love to have you here. But anyways, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for coming, and thanks for watching.